Following the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on the 7th of December 1941, the American and Australian military soon discovered that they knew very little about the types and capabilities of Japanese aircraft. Allied pilots had no aids to assist them in identifying Japanese aircraft. Not long after General MacArthur escaped from the Philippines by PT boat and B-17 Flying Fortress in March 1942 and established his headquarters in Collins Street, Melbourne, he authorised personnel working for the Directorate of Intelligence in Victoria Barracks in Melbourne to take complete charge of all enemy crashed or captured aircraft or personnel in the Southwest Pacific area. As a result, Captain Frank T. McCoy Jr. and Technical Sergeant Francis Fran Williams helped organise a materiel section to evaluate captured Japanese equipment. McCoy was placed in charge of the materiel section. Whilst at Victoria Barracks, Williams suggested to McCoy that they should assign code names to the confusing variety of Japanese aircraft that their pilots were encountering. McCoy, Williams and Corporal Joseph Grattan developed a set of code names based on common English names. Fighter aircraft were given male names, bombers were given female names, and transport aircraft were given names starting with the letter T. On the 9th of October 1942, Lieutenant Clyde Gessel was assigned as the Enemy Equipment Engineer in Air Service Command 5th Air Force. In about March 1943, McCoy's Material Section in Brisbane became the Allied Technical Air Intelligence Unit, which was a joint US Army Air Force, US Navy and Royal Australian Air Force unit which operated out of Hangar 7 at Eagle Farm Airfield in Brisbane. In early 1943, Australian infantry soldiers were the first to encounter what appeared to be a new type of Japanese aircraft when they occupied Boona Airfield. Gessel flew to Port Moresby on the 23rd of January 1943 and experienced his first Japanese air raid the following night. On 25th of January, Gessel flew to WWII and caught a jeep ride to Boona Airfield and then to the beach camp near Goropa Point. Some of the Japanese aircraft he had come to inspect were being prepared for shipment. Clyde slept on the beach at Boona that first night. Then on Tuesday morning he took a walk along the beach to Boona Mission and then to Goropa Village. That afternoon they prepared some engines for shipment and Gessel sent a radio message to McCoy back in Brisbane. After many difficulties, enough airframes, wings, tail sections, engines and other parts to build a complete aircraft were towed by barges to Oro Bay. On Monday the 1st of February, the load was transferred to the freighter Larina, which then sailed to Milne Bay, where the enemy aircraft and parts were transferred to the Liberty ship Stephen Field. After many delays, the Stephen Field finally arrived in Brisbane on the 19th of February 1943. On about the 24th of February 1943, work started on rebuilding the first Japanese aircraft at Hangar 7. It was an A6N3 Zeke Type 32 or 0. The remains of 5 wrecked aircraft were used to rebuild the single flyable Zeke 32. Clyde Gessel commented in his diary on Anzac Day 1943, "The reconstruction on the plane has been progressing slowly. Too many bullet holes in the plane." When this type of aircraft was first discovered at Boona, it was thought to be a new design due to its square wingtips. It was initially given the new code name HAP, after US Army Air Force Chief of Staff General Hap Arnold. This was quickly changed to HAMP when it was realised that General Arnold was not at all impressed with his nickname being used to identify an enemy aircraft. It was eventually realised that it was not a new design, but a variation of the Zeke, the correct code name for the 0. This modified Zeke had more horsepower and the small folding wingtips have been removed and wingtip fairings fitted. Once it was realised it was not a new type of aircraft, its code name was changed from HAMP to Zeke 32. Captain William Farrier became the first American pilot to fly the rebuilt Zeke 32 at Eagle Farm Airfield for 30 minutes on the 20th of July 1943. Farrier was able to test the trim settings on the 0 and only minor adjustments were required. The Zero was painted in its Japanese paint scheme, complete with red Japanese rising sun insignia, sometimes referred to as the meatball. An Allied aircraft accompanied the Zero on the flight to facilitate recognition photography and to protect the Zero from being shot down by any keen Allied pilots who may not have been aware of the ATAIU's role in testing Japanese aircraft. The pilot who was originally to fly the Zero that day had refused to fly the aircraft because he was concerned about some faulty brakes. That same pilot was unfortunately killed in an AT-6 crash later that same day. The Allied Technical Air Intelligence Unit operation at Hangar 7 in Brisbane was totally intelligence-driven. Aircraft recognition profiles for various Japanese aircraft were produced. These included various camouflage and identification markings. The Japanese aircraft were flown to their limits and against our fighter aircraft to determine their performance capability and effective fighter tactics for Allied pilots. Innovative construction techniques were copied, and weak spots that Allied aircraft could target during dogfights were documented. The armament capability of Japanese aircraft was tested and analysed. Nameplates harvested from Japanese aircraft and engine components contained the name of the factory and the town in which it was built. This provided likely targets for future bombing raids on Japan. The month and year shown also allowed the Allies to determine the production rates from the various Japanese factories to assist with strategies to win the war.